Why hello there, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is HD, and I'm back with another HD ladder battle series. That's right, we're going to be doing more of these ladder battle series, and I am going to be playing once again as Zerg. As you guys can see, I'm starting the game off right now. I'm still ranked 91, as you guys can see, in Diamond. And I haven't really played too many games since my last broadcast. I played maybe about 5 or 10. And yes, I know I should be playing more. My games at MLG are going to be coming up in 2 weeks, and I'm going to be a complete embarrassment if I don't practice more. So I'm going to basically make a resolution right now, right here. Got to play at least 10 games a day. The other thing is, you guys may have noticed that I do have a lot of bonus pool. You guys might be wondering, why am I not higher in the Diamond League yet? It's really because I believe, like, to be in top 10 you have to have at least 1,500 points or something like that, and so I haven't really played enough to get that high. But in other news, I just got a message from a couple of people, a couple of my friends, and they said you can no longer be promoted into the Masters League until patch, well, not until patch, but till Season 3 comes out. And that's really, really disheartening for me, because I wanted to be in Masters League so badly before MLG. And it looks like now I'm going to be in Diamond League when I'm playing in the tournament, which, I guess it doesn't really have any bearing or resemblance on your actual game, as long as you're good enough, I suppose you could say. So they have locked the league, and it's a little bit unfortunate, but I am practicing with a lot of my teammates and a lot of my friends who are in Masters and close to Grandmasters. So hopefully I'll be prepped, primed, and ready to go. But I have also found that the players that the matchmaking system for Battle.net has been matching me up against have actually been extraordinarily good. Much better than what you would expect for normal Diamond players. Either that or I just still really suck badly. I can't tell quite yet which it is, but after maybe, starting to play more games a day, I'll eventually figure it out. I'll let you guys know. But this is going to be another Zerg versus Protoss, which makes this like the third ZvP I've done in the last couple of days, but that's alright. ZvP is probably still my weakest matchup. It always has been. I've always had troubles dealing with Protoss as of late, and even when I was playing in the beta. But one thing I've really found out about playing against Protoss is aggression is key. You don't really want to sit back and play a super macro game anymore, because Protoss players actually prefer that. They like to stay back on as many bases as they can, and in fact the optimum is 3 or more, and they like to just sit back and play the macro game. So as a Zerg player, you really have to bring the game to them, so to say. And that's really been my new strategy and tactic to dealing with Protoss as of late. So we'll see how this game plays out. I'm only probably going to be doing one ladder game today, because I do have a best of 5 series with that was played in the Team Prodigy Star League, and that's going to be a 2v2 series between Complexity Root and Complexity Druby, formerly Root obviously, versus Select and Optic Zero, and that's going to be a really, really interesting series that I want to get right on after this cast. So as you guys can see, I am stealing the gas. I am only doing that really because when a Protoss players go for the cybernetics core, I like to just continuously steal the gas, because that denies them that extra gas they need to go for the 3-gate expo, keeps their energy levels down, or their gas intake down, which they need for sentries. But since I saw that he did get a Nexus, which was pretty quick, it seems to be a 1-gate Nexus here, in response to my fast expo, I'm going to cancel that extractor and use the drone just to scout for as long as possible. Really no need to grab the second gas from a Protoss player if they're going to expand, because this early on at least, because it basically means they want to play a super long macro game. They're not going to need that early gas. So in response to that, you guys can kind of see this is like the leveling game when you're playing at a higher level of StarCraft 2. I am going to be grabbing another hatchery, a third hatchery, in response to his second Nexus. Now when I say I'm playing at a higher level of StarCraft 2, don't, take it to mean like, oh my god, HD's a god amongst men. No, definitely not. I've gotten comments that I may sound like God. Whether or not that may be credible is entirely up to you. You guys can worship me if you like. Send me your prayers and gifts, but can't promise anything will be answered. Yeah, I'm not really, that great of a player, but I hope that this helps out players that are in the Diamond League or lower, just to improve their game, by being able to watch me play in first-person view, obviously. So I am, of course, spreading the creep. I always like to get that third extra queen out. Never can have too many queens, I always say, and that third queen helps you get creep tumors, helps you defend against void rays if your opponent goes for that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's just nice to have a third queen. I did sacrifice an overlord, as you guys can see, so I am supply blocked right now, but I quickly have that next overlord coming out to refill my capacity. And that sacrificing of the overlord is really just to see if my opponent is trying anything like going for a quick Stargate, which is highly unlikely, but you just never know, especially when you're playing against Protoss. You want to scout, you want to always send in stuff to see what they're doing. So I am playing this kind of macro game right now. I do have 3 bases. In terms of the spawning positions, I'm fairly comfortable with playing a macro game on these spawn points. The only thing I have to be a little bit careful about is the possibility of quick air, but since I scouted in, I didn't really see a Stargate at any point, and I didn't see the second gas going up, and I do see all his Chrono Boost being used on probes. I'm gonna more lean towards the probability that he's not gonna go for Void Rays here. So I am going to just continue droning up and play that macro game for now, but remember I was talking in the beginning of this video, guys, you don't want to necessarily as a Zerg play too much of a macro game nowadays, especially against Protoss. You do want to try to be a little more aggressive and, you know, bring some of the hurt. Now my opponent did scout. If you guys notice, if you rewind this video like 10 to 20 seconds, you guys did notice that the probe went over to the third, and so my opponent was really smart. He knows that there is a third hatchery up. He was building a proxy pylon as well, which I have been able to pick off. You want to be really diligent about that. If your opponent moves a probe into your third and it comes out the other end, just send something over there, check for that pylon, because in the later portions of the game it can be really annoying if he starts to warp in zealots and they come into your mineral line. So just take those out as quickly as possible. And you guys can tell I do have a pack of Zerglings out right now. The reason why I'm producing attacking units right now rather than droning up is because my opponent just scouted my third, and if he were to do some kind of a timing attack right now, I want to make sure I have units to defend against it. So I do have, you know, a sizable army coming out right now. And this all goes back to that aggressive metagame that I was talking about. If your opponent isn't attacking you, well, this is when you can start to take the pain to them. You can use those forces you created to apply some pressure, all the while droning up in the back. So now I am going back to droning, but as you guys can see on the minimap, I'm preparing myself for an engagement. And this isn't necessarily an engagement where you want to commit your forces, but where you want to put a little pressure on your opponent. Make it so that he doesn't probe up anymore. Make it so he wastes energy on force fields, and if you can, pick off any units where possible. So I'm going to go ahead and move in just a little bit here, but quickly fall away as soon as the force fields come up. You know, I lose maybe 5 or 6 Zerglings here or there, but in terms of, well, that was actually a really bad loss right there, because some of my Zerglings found themselves in jail there and they all died. But in terms of forcing my opponent to use force fields, that's actually really, really valuable. Those force fields will mean that my opponent's army won't have as much force fields later on. And a sentry, you know, 10 sentries that are fully maxed on energy is equivalent to 40 force fields, and that's nasty. So you want to continually poke at your opponent with those cheap dispensable Zerglings and keep that force field count down. Now, I am preparing myself for an engagement here. Notice I do have roaches, and I am getting ready for a 2-pronged attack here. And this is really good because your opponent will not be able to cut your entire army off with just 1 layer of force field. So I'm moving in here, focusing the Colossus down first. The Colossus is always the priority unit. Keep that Colossus count down, and then fall away. You don't have to continue with the engagement. You know, the order of priority really for Protoss when you're dealing with them, if they're going for ground, is Colossus, sentries. That's the hit list, so to say. If you could draw like a list of forces and you want to check them off, you want to go for Colossus and then sentries and then everything else. So as you guys can see here, I'm moving in once again, and my opponent pretty much is in trouble at this point because as a Protoss, you don't want to overextend yourself. If your army gets devastated in the first battle and you lose all your Colossus, typically that's when you want to fall back. You don't want to continue engaging without a lot of sentries and a lot of Colossus. So my opponent was a little bit a little bit bold there, and it didn't exactly work out to his best favor. And now you guys can see he doesn't really have any sentries at all because I've been so diligent about keeping that sentry count down. Okay, so I am going to be moving in here, but of course, as always, not overextending myself, just like how my Protoss shouldn't be overextending himself. Just trading blows here or there, but always falling back when the favor of the engagement doesn't really fall on my side. Now, I do have these Corruptors coming out, and obviously Corruptors are a natural transition for Zerg when your opponent starts to get those Colossus up. Typically, you want to get enough Corruptors to be able to two-shot a Colossus as quickly as possible. And I am moving out with some of my Zerglings across the map right here, and the reason why I want to do this is it all goes back to that strategy of playing aggressive against your opponent. And the other really reason is you don't want to let him get a third base. Protoss that is fully mining off 3 bases is a handful to deal with if you're Zerg. So I'm going to move in there and try to snipe that Nexus off, and at the same time moving out across the map with my forces just to keep the pressure on my opponent. Now that the Nexus, of course, has been cancelled, I will be able to fall back and, you know, fight another day. You don't have to overcommit your forces at any point and just continue to play that aggressive playstyle. Now, if you guys are watching this video and you guys are Zerg, one thing that you should be doing better than I am doing is spreading that creep. My creep spread is actually pretty abysmal this game as opposed to all the other games I've been playing. And I've been talking about this is like one of the key core things I want to focus on is creep spread, but unfortunately my creep spread is really kind of garbage, at least for this game. Also, another thing here is I should have realized, you know, where did those zealots come from? They must have came from a pylon at the top of the ramp, and I didn't decide to kill off that pylon. So, a little bit of a mistake right there as well, because now you guys see on the minimap, once again, my hatchery is under attack. But I really don't have the energy or the APM right now to divert any forces over there to defend against that, because I'm really focused on breaking this army down. You guys can notice right now I am getting ready to go in for the all-out attack, and I want to take out these Colossus. The main objective of this battle is not to win, but to kill off all those high expensive priority units. First the Colossus, and then any sentries. So you guys see here, now I'm finally spending a little bit of time to deal with those zealots, but it looks like they will pop the hatchery. No big deal though, because I have killed off all the Colossus. Now I can fall back. I don't want to continue engaging because he still has a stronger ground army, but because I've been macroing this whole time, I do have additional reinforcements and he won't be able to continue pushing me back. So I guess one thing I could have done better in this game is, you know, not lose that hatchery over there, because that would have been I would be at 4 base, my opponent would be at 3. I would have been moving to my 5th at my gold, so I would have been in a better position. But because he was able to snipe that hatchery, he's definitely still on par with me right now, and I'm not, you know, out of the woods yet. Now, one thing here that is kind of annoying is the fact that since I have all these Corruptors out, my opponent isn't, you know, opting to build any more Colossus. And when you're in this kind of situation, you really want to have that infestation pit down to be ready to move into Hive as soon as possible, because these Corruptors are really useless until you get them into Brute Lord status. I mean, for obvious reasons, if your opponent isn't making any more Colossus, what are good are your Corruptors? You're just gonna vomit on units and, you know, give them plus 20%, take 20% more damage. That's not really a useful ability. So you want to move straight into Colossus, or yeah, if Zerg had Colossus, that'd be awesome. You want to move straight into Brute Lords, and obviously along the way you're gonna have all this gas that the infestation pit can be used for a bunch of infestors, and fungal growth is awesome. Let me tell you guys, Season 1, not so much of a unit that was used. Season 2, it is almost required in every matchup for Zerg. So, I am moving into... I do have the infestation pit down, and I do have that research going for the pathogen glands. And I do have my infestors now starting to come out. One thing I would criticize here as well if you guys are playing Zerg is don't start building the infestors until your pathogen glands upgrade is more than halfway complete, about 55–60% complete. And the reason for that is that way it'll time it, so right when your infestors come out, they have energy for fungal growth. The upgrade will finish right before they hatch. So it's actually a really, you know, good timing to learn. Unfortunately, I didn't follow my own lesson here, and my infestors don't have energy, so I have to wait before I have, well, once I have 75 energy, for the ability to engage. That way I'll be able to fungal growth and lock down my opponent's forces and not allow them to move an inch. And I'll be able to surround with all my roaches, my lings, and if I need, spawn some infested Terrans. Now my opponent is attacking this hatchery once again, wisely moving into a mass immortal army because I have all these corruptors, but now I have the infestors out and I'll be able to throw down that fungal growth. One thing you guys might notice here is my infestor control maybe not the best. Right after you use those fungal growths, you really want to get the infestors out of harm's way. That way you're able to continually use their energy over and over again. I wasn't too good on that here. I did end up losing more infestors than I needed to, but I got the fungal growths off, and that is going to allow me to push this army back because fungal growth, it is acid that does, I think it's like 48 damage over 3 or so seconds. It's pretty brutal, and it eats through Protoss shields and armor like hot lava through butter, or a hot knife through butter. So it's pretty painful. I was able to decimate his army there, and it looks like my opponent, being pretty smart here, is also doing this highly aggressive game where he's bringing in zealots around my mineral line. But I should be able to dispatch of these without taking too many losses, although my drones seem to want to fight for themselves here. But I should be able to take care of these zealots pretty easily. So there you guys see now, I have established control over my bases, and I'm actually, ooh, that hatchery almost died, I didn't notice that. But I'm actually at a pretty good lead right now. Reason being is, yes, I only have 4 bases, and I am about to get my 5th, and my opponent only has 3. So you might say, well, it's pretty even in bases, but I was able to trade armies with the Protoss time and time again, and that's absolutely important if you're playing Zerg. Doesn't matter how many bases you're at against Protoss, as long as you're always trading armies before they max out. So you guys can see here, once again, moving in, and my opponent decides to GG. So that's game. Mr. Shady Tree, thank you very much for that game. It was a very enjoyable Protoss versus Zerg. And I want to thank you guys out there in the audience for tuning into these HD ladder battles. I know I've had a lot of people wanting to see them, so I'm starting to bring a lot more of these ladder battles around, but that doesn't mean I'm going to stop doing pro games. I will have more games coming out. In fact, moving right into a 2v2 best of 5 series coming up next. So thanks all for tuning in. This is HD, signing out.